Morning, folks. Welcome to the March 27th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms over to the left side of the room. Fill them out with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hall so the meeting is not disrupted. Public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the February 20th, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, hereby opened. Yeah, all right. Brooke made the motion to approve. I think Karen seconded that. All those in favor of the motion to approve those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning, Chair, Commission. Cassie Hayes, Community Development. Item 2 before you is a variance request. This is a request to allow gravel parking and access in lieu of pavement for a utility substation. This is property located just east of the corner of Country Road and Haynes Avenue. The property is currently zoned low density residential district 1 with a future land use of urban neighborhood. It does take access both from Haynes Avenue and Country Road, which are both classified as principal arterial streets on the city's major street plan. What they are proposing to do here is they are proposing to construct the site preparations that are necessary for construction of the Mall Ridge substation. That is going to be an electrical substation owned and operated by West River Electric Association. The site preparations that they're proposing include grading work for construction of access roads, installation of concrete driveway approaches from both Haynes Avenue and Country Road, and installation of sidewalk along Haynes Avenue. They did obtain last year a variance to not install sidewalk on Country Road, so I do want to point that out as well. So by code, vehicle or equipment maneuvering areas must be paved either with 4 inches of concrete, 4 inches of asphalt, or 2 inches of asphalt plus 4 inches of base course. They are requesting this variance due to the intended use of the property as an electrical substation, which generates very minimal traffic for this property. So the criteria that we look at when it comes to variance requests, I do want to point out a few of them. Because that low traffic volume is expected for this electrical substation, enforcement of the hard surfacing requirement would require for pavement to be removed at a later date when they do come in and install that substation equipment. The size of the lot and that limited traffic do create special circumstances that could justify approval of the variance request. This is an 8.25 acre lot, and as you can see up there on the screen, the substation is proposed to be located somewhat near the center of the property. I do want to point out that a substation or a utility station is a conditional use in the low density residential district 1. They have submitted a conditional use permit that you see later on today in the consent agenda right now. I do also want to point out that the substation where it is located is in a location that could enhance services to the existing development in this area and also support future development in this area, as we are seeing quite a bit of platting of new residential lots in this area and some new commercial uses coming in. So this substation is located in an area that can be beneficial for future development. And the gravel surfacing that they're proposing with appropriate mitigation measures does appear to be an appropriate request given the use of the property. It does align with what we have granted for other substations in the city. And it does have a minimal impact on the neighborhood. I do want to point out one thing. Air Quality noted a concern for tracking onto Haynes Avenue and Country Road since they are principal arterial streets, especially Haynes Avenue. It's a heavily trafficked road. So staff does recommend that a dust palliative be applied. We are also recommending that the first 20 feet of the accesses be paved and that permanent track out pads be installed at both entrances to to prevent some of that track out onto the public right-of-way. So ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the variance request to allow the gravel parking and access in lieu of pavement, based on the criteria that there are special circumstances that do justify approval. It does appear to be the minimum adjustment necessary, and mitigation measures are required to prevent track out onto the public right-of-ways. So we are recommending approval with some stipulations noted in the staff report. I'll stand for any questions, and there is also a representative for the project in the audience today as well.
Thank you. I think I have a speaker request on this. Joe Noble, is this the item you wish to speak to?
Yes, that's correct.
We'd have you come up to the microphone if you want to address. And once you're up, identify yourself for our records.
Good morning. My name's Joe Noble with AE2S, design engineer for West River Electric Association. Appreciate your time, board and board members and city staff. As mentioned, we do seek and appreciate approval of this variance, but we do ask that the board maybe consider changes to the stipulations that have been mentioned, particularly the request for the additional 20 feet of pavement on both the accesses and the dust palliative. I did provide a letter that hopefully was a part of your packet as this, just discussing some of the reasoning behind the request, primarily for the track out pad and the permanent. This substation, like many other substations, which I did provide pictures of in part of your packet, aren't necessarily required to have that, because as our understanding, a lot of the big concern is tracking out of the gravel surfacing onto the roads. However, the top coating of both the substation and like other substations is large aggregate without any sort of binder or fines. And therefore, those aggregate don't tend to get tracked out at all. And therefore, we don't feel that that's a major concern. We have other, West River Electric and Black Hills Energy have similar substations right along other major roads that don't have these track out or permanent pavement access points, and don't have the issue of tracking out the top clean rock surfacing onto the roadways. Additionally, we're asking that the requirement for the dust palliative be also considered to be removed. As mentioned, that top surfacing is a 4 inches of clean aggregate rock, meant specifically to help with the actual. It's a required as a part of the substation itself, because of some of the safety concerns with that. But it doesn't have any of those fines or any sort of binder that necessarily would create a sort of a dust issue. It just isn't that. Some of the typical dust palliative measures include like mag chloride or mag water. There's concerns that mag chloride could actually change the soil conductivity of the site, which, because of its nature of this substation, actually could prevent additional maintenance concerns and issues down the road, as well as cause other issues by having that dust palliative added. Like I mentioned, there are other substations at both West River Electric and Black Hills Energy that it's our understanding that this dust palliative doesn't get applied to either. So greatly appreciate your time, willing to answer any questions you may have, consideration of this variance request.
Thank you. Vicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Joe, for your comments. I'll defer to Todd and see if he can help us out with whether or not the rock surfacing would provide the tracking. This one is unique in that it is adjacent to 2 arterial streets. This is an area that does have high wind issues throughout a majority of our seasons. We'll stand firm that we do want the dust palliative, and our air quality specialist will work closely with West River Electric to ensure that we're using the minimum amount necessary to address dust, and if there isn't an issue, then potentially then during that length of time, one wouldn't be needed, but as years go on, soils move, that can then be lodged within the rock, dust continues, and so that's something that we can work with on, but we are requesting that that stipulation remain. And if I could defer to Todd on whether or not the pavement and tracking component stipulation is truly being addressed by the rock design of the interior road.
Todd, before I call on you, I just want to ask Joe or Cassie one thing. The access roads, would those be constructed with the same 4-inch, no fines type of aggregate?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Then there was a mention that this is site preparation, that the substation is not being built immediately. Is the site preparation still going with that 4-inch rock, no aggregate?
The original site preparation is actually a little bit different, and there's initial site prep, and then there's installation of the infrastructure, and then there's the 4-inch. During the site prep, that's a slightly different soil conditions that would be required to do dust mitigation as standard construction practices. We're looking more at the final top coating, which will be that 4-inch clean rock.
Okay, thank you. Todd?
So for the interior yard, the 4-inch rock makes sense for any type of driveway or access road that's permanent. That's a pretty unusual surface. We don't see that very often. There would be less dust with it, but I still believe that the pavement should be required for the first 20 feet, because it doesn't mean that there will be no dust or tracking over time, kind of like what Vicky says.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from the commission? I'll jump in again since nobody's up. What is the timetable between site prep and construction, or is that still a guess that, with other factors?
Yes, we actually have a contractor awarded, looking to start construction here in the next month.
On the site prep?
On the site prep,
But
correct. But then the infrastructure, I believe the intention is to have this installation fully installed by the end of the summer, as soon as possible. A lot of it's dictated
so
by.
There's not a big gap.
No, there's
in
not.
this.
A lot of it's dictated by, availability of the actual infrastructure pieces itself. But there is a contractor in hand to start right away.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Brooke?
Mr. Chair, seeing that there are no further discussion points, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the variance with the stipulations or recommendations of staff.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Just for procedural, Brooke made a motion, which was seconded, to approve with the 4 stipulations listed. Discussion on the motion. Vicky?
Yes, could we have the motion maker do a friendly amendment to state that the criteria has been met, that this is a special circumstance with limited traffic?
Brooke, does that work for you? Yes. Sorry.
And I
Okay.
concur.
Motion maker and second concurred. Haven?
I guess my question would be, and I think I know the answer, but if we would approve it without those stipulations on the surface in the out on the road, and there becomes a problem, dust-wise or tracking-wise down the road, I guess what authority would the city have to correct that if we have approved it without those requirements?
Mr.
Vicky?
Chair, thank you. Right now, there are requirements regulations in place that any commercial use such as this, if they are tracking or creating dust issues, typically we get complaints about it and then it becomes a violation procedure. We have one person for the entire city of Rapid City that has to address all of these properties. Our regulations are written so that we can avoid that. so that we can ensure that these issues don't arise for that neighborhood to have to endure that situation.
All right, further discussion on the motion or other questions that anybody needs on this? All right, all those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Any opposed? All right, that was unanimous. That's our last zoning board item today. Look for a motion to adjourn zoning board.
Motion to adjourn zoning board?
All right, Vince made the motion, Karen seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll now commence the Planning Commission meeting for March 27th, 2025. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to a Planning Commission item on the agenda today, please grab a speaker request form, fill it out, and hand it to the staff, and we'll make sure you get heard. And if you still haven't turned off your cell phone or other electronic device, please do so now or silence it so we are not disrupted. Items 1 through 11 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 9, 25 UR 008, and item 11, 25 UR 010. The Rapid City Planning Commission's actions on these two items are final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 11 that staff would like removed today for separate consideration?
Number 11, please.
Okay. Are there any items 1 through 10 that any planning commissioner would like removed for separate consideration? Any items 1 through 10 that any audience member would like removed for separate consideration? Chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 10 in accordance with staff's recommendation.
Motion to approve items 1 through 10 in accordance with staff's recommendations.
All right, is there a second to Vince's motion? All right, Alicia made the second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11.
Hello again. Item number 11 is the conditional use permit that goes along, there we go. That goes along with the variance request that you just approved. So I just wanted to give a brief presentation on this, as this is specific to the use of the utility substation. So again, it will be owned and operated by West River Electric. They are proposing to surround the substation itself with a 10-foot tall chain link fence. Let me bring up their site plan again. So the substation itself will be surrounded with a 10-foot tall chain link fence. Code does allow for up to a 12-foot tall fence for public utilities. So they are also proposing, like I said, both accesses from Haynes Avenue and Country Road. There are two drainages on this property that I do want to point out. There is one on the west side there, which I believe, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, is actually delegated through the Army Corps of Engineer as a wetland. So they are preserving that very well through a 404 permit with the Corps of Engineers. There is also a drainage element on the east side as well, so that's why this substation has to stay more so towards the center of the property. So I can show you a couple pictures. This is the site as you see it. I'll show you some pictures from site photos. This is the project site looking at Country Road. This is looking also from Country Road a little bit more towards the southeast, looking towards the northeast. This is looking north from the project site. This is looking east from the project site. This is looking west. You will note that there is that multifamily dwelling right there. This is one view looking west. As you go a little bit further, this is also looking west, so you can see some of the topography of this property. And then this is a third view looking west as well. So you can see some of the topography of this area. This is looking at the property from Haynes Avenue. You can see this drainage element. This is that drainage that's on the west side of the property. There again is that drainage element. This is that eastern drainage that that they will be preserving as well. And there again, that eastern drainage area. So I do want to point out there is a stipulation in this conditional use permit that does speak to recommending that screening be provided to mitigate the impact of this substation on the surrounding properties. That screening can be an evergreen hedge or some sort of opaque fencing that's in harmony with the aesthetics of the surrounding area. That is in an effort to try to help also mitigate some dust, some noise, and some other factors that could come off of this substation as well, given that this is a well-developed area and there is also development happening on that property that abuts to the east and the south as well. So staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit with stipulations noted in the staff report, and I believe Joe wants to speak to this one as well.
Thank you, Cassie. Joe, why don't you come back up? It's redundant, but please identify yourself again.
Good morning again. Joe Noble with AE2S, design engineer and representative for West River Electric. And once again, board and board president and staff, city staff, just ask that we are seeking approval of this conditional use permit, but do ask the board would take considerations to at least remove or heavily modify the stipulations, particularly when it comes to this screening request. In our understanding with that, the screening would only add additional maintenance to this substation. Right now, as it currently stands, West River Electric primarily only goes to these substations on a monthly basis. So any sort of screening or any other additional maintenance would only increase the additional amount of traffic in and out of these stations. Additionally, the idea of having like an evergreen hedges on the edge would likely not survive for a couple different reasons. This site doesn't have water that we're bringing to the site. Therefore, there's going to be no irrigation system that would be available to help support and maintain those hedges, as well as a lot of part of that site preparation we were talking about incorporates using products that use pre-emergence to ensure there aren't any weeds or grasses that come through that gravel surfacing. So that would also be a preventative to having, say, evergreen hedges. The idea of having like opaque slats is a big concern for twofold. One, concern of it being a windscreen that would cause issues to potentially blow down the fence. As mentioned, this is a pretty high wind area, so any sort of screening would only increase that possibility of that fence getting blown over. Additionally, we're concerned that during heavy snow events, that this would act as nothing more than a block and create snow drifts on either side of the fence. Concerns with that are twofold. One, if there's snow drifting inside of the facility, moisture and electrical substation equipment don't mix very well. So there's concerns that would cause detrimental damage to the substation and equipment. If it was on the other side, concerns of having now access up and over that fence from the public, both of which would cause an unsafe situation of exposing the public to high voltage if the fence were to be compromised in any way. As provided in the packet that we provided for the board consideration, are pictures of not, and I apologize, that's not just West River Electric substations, but West River Electric and Black Hills Energy substations throughout the Rapid City area. As you can see in those pictures, there are several substations in and around other residential areas that do not have either one of those screening requirements. So I would appreciate any consideration that the board may have on eliminating those stipulations for the screening or the plate slats. Here for any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Joe, great comments. So over the years, there was a time when we didn't require the screening on substations. And it did become an issue. It became an eyesore for residential properties as they began to develop out. Sometimes it had an impact on commercial development as well. The requirement to provide the screening was written in for these utility substations so that they could still screen the utility in whatever design they need. The fencing for screening can be along the lot lines if they choose. We do stand that we do think the screening is necessary. This is an arterial street, both on Country Road and Haynes Avenue. We have fairly dense residential to the north and somewhat to the west. To the east and the south, this is the NDN Collective project that you've seen numerous times in plan development applications and in plats. Vision Fund dollars have been approved to bring forward a community center. This is all going to be within very close proximity and adjacent to this substation. So just to ensure that we're allowing the electrical growth needed to support the future development of this area, we also need to look at the aesthetics of what that means to have an industrial use within a residential zoning district. And so the compromise is that we do stand on the screening requirement, but it doesn't mean that they have to use the fencing directly around the substation as that screening component. They can place it elsewhere on the property if they so choose.
Thanks, Vicki. Comments from the commission? I'm probably an outlier. Well, I'll go to Vince instead of just jabbering on. Vince?
No, that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know you didn't address the, using the screening outside of the station. Did you want to say something to that?
I did, thank you. As mentioned here, part of this uniqueness of this site here is we do have some very clear wetland and drainage delineation that providing fencing outside on the perimeter of that would have to go through that, which would be problematic. Part of the reason why we're now seeing this project being presented today, we've actually been working on this project for 2+ years now. Part of the reason that it's just now coming to you for approval of the conditional use permit is because it took us over a year to work with the Corps of Engineers to get the 404 permitting. Any sort of access or construction within the 404 outside of what's already been permitted would have to go back to the Corps and potentially not even be approved as said. Part of that includes, like, we have requirements to not, specific requirements from the Corps of Engineers not to mow or cut down or do any sort of landscaping maintenance in those drainage ways, specifically to support and ensure that those drainage ways and wetlands are being preserved. Any sort of fencing that would go around the outside of the perimeter would be problematic to that at best. Additionally, when you start looking at like queue distances, so i.e. the ability for maintenance vehicles to come off of either Haynes or Country Road, you have to have enough distance where they can safely get off and then access through those vehicle gates. Right now, we are able to have that safe queuing off of the roadway with where the location of those fencing gates are located. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, and thank you for answering that. I appreciate that. And this is a fast-growing area, actually, District 33. And I remember 10 years ago that there were some folks that just moved into this area and they had concerns about the aesthetics. And yes, I do appreciate the pictures that you provided, where it does show that there's no screening around those facilities. We are trying to do something different, and I do appreciate the staff's concerns, and I do support the staff's concerns in that situation. Thank you.
All right, anything else from the commission on this?
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
just as a point of clarification, the screening requirement can be a combination of landscaping and/or screening. They could use some of the utility fencing when needed for that screening, or if there was additional area not impeded by 404 permit restrictions that required that side of the utility to include perhaps the cloth slats within the chain link. But we're here to work with them. It can be numerous things. Certainly, we want to minimize the maintenance, the cost, and we do not want to delay their project where they have to go back through the 404 permit process. So maintaining that stipulation means that we will have to be flexible to some degree and work with them when the building permit comes in.
Vince? I gotta get you back on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Vicki. I assumed that, but I'm glad you said it out loud. Thank you.
Haven?
I guess that raises a question, thank you, Mr. Chair. If we approve this, then I'm sorry I didn't specifically read that stipulation, but what then flexibility is there for the city to require once we approve this?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicky?
we actually revised the regulations maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, that allows the director to have the ability to waive that screening when there are unique situations, so that they don't have to come forward and get a variance or come before the Planning Commission for reconsideration. So again, our commitment that we will work with them to preserve the integrity of the aesthetics of the neighborhood, but yet respect that they do have some 404 limitations as well.
All right, anything else from the commission on this? Karen, sorry, I missed you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is something that we're going to do different from now on. If everyone drives through Rapid City and sees all the different utilities, it is an eyesore to some degree, because you kind of go, well, that doesn't fit wherever it is. So, but I do understand the concerns for the folks who are trying to put this utility station there and all the different issues that are there, and it happens to be right on those major streets. And so I guess, in my opinion, I think we should stick with the staff's recommendation. And since I spoke, I'm going to make a motion to approve the stipulations.
Okay. All right, Karen made her motion as stated, and with the 6 stipulations listed. Vince seconded that motion.
Right.
Any other discussion on the motion? I'm just gonna throw out, this isn't a hill that I'm gonna die on, but I like utility substations, how they look. They don't bother me. I don't think there's an aesthetic issue, but I also like rock crushing installations and other things like that. Just my 2 cents. All right, anything else on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commission. Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. Item number 12 is 25 UR 007, which is a major amendment to a conditional use permit to allow on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a restaurant. This property is located at 516 7th Street, which is located up in the northwest corner of the Lakota Building, also known as the Buell Building downtown. I'll take you through some slides first. So the property is located in the Central Business District, and this suite does front 7th Street. Future land use of the property is downtown. And like I said, the property is fronted by 7th Street. It is located between St. Joseph and Main Street in our urban core, both of which are designated as principal arterial streets on the major street plan. So the applicant is proposing to open a restaurant called The Social House. It is located at 516 7th Street. For your reference, there have been 3 conditional use permits that have previously been approved at this location. Back in 2017, it was approved for as a conditional use permit in conjunction with a restaurant, which was called Jambones Deux. That subsequently went out of business. Then in 2020, its location was approved for a proposed wine bar, but of course we all know in 2020 when the pandemic hit, that wine bar never actually opened. And then recently it was approved as an on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with an entertainment lounge known as The Coop, and that has since gone out of business as well. So this applicant is proposing to open this as a restaurant called The Social House. It's just over 2,400 square feet on the main floor, which you can see on the right of this graphic. On the left is the current setup of the property. So they are going to add in a bar, some tables, and then in the back they're going to convert a storage area into the kitchen. Also located on this property is a basement, and in the basement on the left is the current configuration, and on the right will be the proposed configuration, which will include a walk-in cooler and some storage areas, as well as a mop sink and a vegetable sink to do some light food prep. Additionally, there is a residence located on the second floor of this building, which you will see in the site photos. They're proposing to do a restaurant that focuses on smash burgers, appetizers, and lunch specials, and propose to serve cocktails, wine, and beer in association with those restaurant items. So here's a picture of the existing building. You can see the sign from the previous business there, and you can also see that the conditional use permit sign has been placed in the window. Note that this is located immediately adjacent to Art Alley. This is looking across the street from the proposed location across 7th Street. This is looking to the north towards Memorial Park there. And this is looking to the south. Some of the other businesses located within the Buell building are the Tinderbox, which is a cigar bar with on sale. There is a barbershop called the B Sharp Cut Company. They also have on sale. And then Canvas 2 Paint is located on the corner. They also have on sale. So this may seem like an undue concentration of on sale in the area. This is in our downtown entertainment district, which does not require parking. Landscaping is meant to be walkable. So we do not, and as such as the core of downtown and the main entertainment district, we do not feel that this is an undue concentration of on sale. Again, another close-up of the sign posted in the window. Again, this is just conditional use permit for on sale in association with a restaurant. There's been 3 different on sale permits that have been approved at this location in the past, and there have been no problems with any of those businesses associated with the use of on sale alcohol. The applicant, I spoke with him yesterday. He had planned to be here today, but he was unfortunately unexpectedly called to go out of town, so he sends his apologies that he couldn't be here to answer any questions. So I will stand for any questions at this time.
Thanks, Kip. You mentioned the apartment. Does that have any bearing on what we're considering, or is it just kind of a feature of the building?
Just a feature of the building. There are residences located above many different on-sale establishments throughout the downtown area.
Karen? Oh, your mic was on. I just turned it off. Did you have anything? No. Okay. All right, anything from the commission? Questions? Comments?
No, I'll make a
Motions?
motion to approve.
All right. Vince made with the stipulations?
With the stipulations.
All right. Is there a second to Vince's motion? Mike Gallagher seconded that. Any discussion on the motion to approve with stipulations? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13.
Morning, Chair and Commission. Morgan Twombly, Environmental Planner. This item is a conditional use permit for on-sale liquor in conjunction with a food retail business. This is also located on St. Joseph Street. It's at 614 St. Joe. As you can see, this is zoned Central Business District and downtown future land use. This will take access off of St. Joseph Street, which is a principal arterial. And this is the floor plan. So essentially what they're planning on doing is producing locally grown produce using aquaponics. So that will be what you enter into when you come off of St. Joseph Street. And then additionally, they will have a bar and classroom area. They want to do some small events and offer beer and wine that is locally produced. And they will also offer some locally produced goods as well, in addition to the food retail. All the alcohol will be locked in that back storage area that you see. And yeah, this is the storefront. As you can see, they posted their signage. This is looking up St. Joseph Street towards Block 5. And this is looking down St. Joe. And this is looking across the street. So staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit with the stipulations noted in the report. And I don't believe the applicant is in, oh, the applicant is in the audience if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Anything from the commission on item 13?
Motion to approve with stipulations.
Okay.
Second.
Mike Gallagher made the motion to approve with the stipulations. Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14.
Good morning, Chair, Commission. Jessica Olson with Current Planning. We have 25 PD 004. This is an amendment to the Chapel Valley Plan Development. Actually, it was a county planned unit development when this was originally built, and then there have been subsequent amendments through the city once it was annexed. This one is specifically for the address at, I believe it's, 3218 Grenoble Court. The property is, so as you can see here, there's a side yard that is adjacent to a street, so that property also has a front setback on this side, and then they front Grenoble here. So it's a single family residence. They're proposing to do an addition. The garage, which you can see right here on the aerial, has had some structural damage. They're getting drainage issues. There's been some level of flooding. So they're going to have to go in and fix the garage. With that, they're proposing to do a residential addition as well. So this is in our low density residential 1 district, which is primarily single family. The use is proposed to remain single family. You can also notice this park forest area kind of surrounding Chapel Valley was built with kind of an open space tract that surrounds the different properties. So there is buffering between some of the different cul-de-sacs and street systems that you see here. It is low density residential, low density neighborhood, again, single family use. When you kind of get off to this Red Rock Canyon past Chapel Lane is where you get into the local street system, but it is in close proximity to Collector and Principal Arterial, where there's access to Jackson. Yeah. So I'm going to start with the elevation because there's a couple different things going on with this proposal. The main reason that it's coming in for a major amendment to the plan development is in order to request exceptions to the setbacks because the use is allowed, the expansion of the house is allowed. It's just the matter of fact, like I said, there's 2 streets that are adjacent to the different yards. So that has a greater setback on those 2 areas. There's also a 25, it would be 20 feet from each side, and then there's a 25-foot setback from the back. I'll also show you in some of the pictures, there's very mature, significant landscaping on those sides of the property. So there's not a huge opportunity to expand except in the area that is proposed. The garage itself was around 525 square. It's a standard 2-stall garage. They're expanding a little bit to, I believe it would be the west in this case, where you see this bump out here as well as up. There's a couple setback requirements. One being this is technically a 2-story on the front here. So that has a 12-foot setback from the side. And we're only talking about the side setback with the exceptions on this one. And then the 1-story part here has an 8-foot setback. And then this kind of recessed area that is the 2nd story that's kind of pushed in from the 1st story has a 20-foot setback on that side. So on this corner, and I'll show you the site plan, we're at 5 feet. And then the 5 feet kind of follows along this line. So generally it's a request to reduce the minimum to 5 feet in lieu of the 8 feet for the 1-story and the 12 feet for the 2-story. This area where you start getting into the 2nd story being set back, where it is the 20-foot setback, that's at about 6 feet based on the site plans. And then it gets greater as you go backwards. So the lot is kind of that triangular type because it's on a cul-de-sac. It's a little hard to see in these ones, but this red line is the setback line that would be 5 feet, so you can see how it's in proximity. This red line is that 2nd story, so you can see how that setback gets a little bit greater as you go back. This is the property line down here, and then the front, the side, and the rear. And you can see there's some topography in the rear as well, and then they have, I believe, a patio and things here. So they're pushing the garage out a little bit on the front, a little bit on the side, and then up. This is, you can kind of see how it is oriented to the other dwelling unit. There's no other dwelling units that are adjacent to this property except this one right here. We did receive a letter of support from that neighbor, and it's in the attachments to the staff report. Just to get an idea of how they're expanding, this is the existing house. The footprint of, and it's kind of one of those split level-ish types, because there's a basement to this. It's about 1,144 square feet. This whole area is about 1,800, a little over 1,800, and their total square footage on the floor, on the ground floor, would be around 2,300. So they're only expanding by about a little over 500 square feet. And then I believe the 2nd floor is more like a 700 on top, if I got my numbers right. So there's a little bit of an expansion this way and this way, but otherwise the rest of the garage is already existing. And then they are adding in this is an older home, so the bedrooms are smaller, same thing with the bathroom, so they are adding a master suite in there. Looking at the, this is looking at the house from the front. We're on Grenoble. You can kind of start seeing the distances from the other structures, and that this side is much less landscaped than the other side of the property. And we'll kind of go around so you can see distances again. There is a shed here. The setback for this side would be the same as theirs, so the 8-foot and the 12-foot again. So that's why staff is ultimately recommending approval of this, but with the stipulations that it has the fire mitigation on the property as well as fire suppression in the addition and fire-rated materials on the side that is increasing or reducing the setback in this case. You can also tell this house is much higher, so I would assume this addition would not be imposing on the adjacent structure as well. It's going to be set back. It's going to be at least same height or even less. You can start to see again the distance between these two. They did post their signage and how this house is much more recessed than the house next door. Again, the only house that it is adjacent to. These are the other houses on that cul-de-sac. Here is that Red Rock Canyon and the mature landscaping on this side, looking back the other way. And that rear where there is some additional landscaping as well. And then you've got your open space area to the rear. So it maintains that open space. It's building on top of an existing area that's already been built, but it also provides the applicant with the opportunity to make their garage structurally sound and add a little bit more to their house. There's other planned development, overly minimal or major amendments in Chapel Valley particularly that have this same situation, reducing to about 5 feet on the side yard setback that were approved with the fire mitigation and suppression and material stipulations as well. So this recommendation is consistent with past recommendations from staff. And I think that is, well, we have one more at the front, but I think that's the end of my presentation here. So I'll stand for any questions. The applicant is in the audience as well.
Thank you. I do have a speaker request form from the applicant, I believe, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning, thank you. I think Jessica kind of nailed everything that we're trying to do, so I could talk for hours on this. We've been looking at it for a long time, so I'll just stand for questions, I guess.
Okay, thank you. That leaves it to us, commission folk. Anything from the commission on this
I don't
one?
think so. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
With stipulations.
all right, Vince made the motion to approve item 14 with the stipulations. Mike Gallagher seconded that. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 15.
Chair, Commission, Jessica Olson again, current planning. So this is 25 PD 005. We're at 1717 Marlin Drive. There's an existing warehouse for Quality Brands. They have a planned development on the property. There was actually a past major amendment for an expansion on this property that did not get built. This is a proposal for a similar situation. The expansion in this case is a little bit bigger. We're looking at, I want to say over 27, almost 28,000 square feet. The existing warehouse there is almost 70,000 square feet. It is 2 stories. There's offices in it. So the reason that we're hearing the major amendment on this one is an exception to the parking requirement. Since they have offices within the warehouse space, we calculate that at a little bit of a higher rate with the 5 per 1,000 square feet. And then the warehouse is at 0.25 per 1,000 square feet. With the total expansion, they're looking at a requirement of 85 parking spots in this case. Currently, they have 70. With the proposed expansion, they're increasing that to 72. So just a snapshot of the area. They're in heavy industrial. As you can see, we're on Elkville, kind of east of Campbell here, and then if you turn on Creek Drive, it's at the end of the road there. There's primarily other mini storage is really what's around this area, and then some drainage areas to the west, as well as a railroad right away. And they are within the heavy industrial future land use designation, so it's compatible with the comprehensive plan. We also have connections to some collectors and principal arterials nearby, while it is on an industrial street. So this is the site plan that shows the improvements that are gonna be made. They have the existing kind of access on this side of the building with the parking. There's gonna be some improvements here to access this expansion of the warehouse. Again, you can see where the offices are in here. This is actually 2 stories. And then we have the warehouse in the rear. So they primarily do distribution. This is Quality Brands. Their landscaping is meeting all of the requirements. It is just the parking. I'll note, we have a stipulation in the staff is recommending approval of this with stipulations. One of them being the access aisles on the wrong side for the van accessible space. The applicant knows this and is planning to, and would be required to submit an update at building permit. Also, a landscape island is required per the landscaping code, which again could be submitted at building permit since it is a minor change. The parking, they submitted an operational plan that shows about 65, 66 employees. With the expansion, they are not increasing employees because the area that they're adding on to the warehouse is essentially automated, and they have other automated purposes in this facility that lets them maintain the existing workforce in that building. This just shows how it'll be expanded. So they'll likely use some other materials to have different looks to the building as well. This is the existing building. We're on Marlin Drive, looking a bit southwest here. As you can see, their distribution, there's gonna be a lot of trucks. The parking lot is not, this is about 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. So getting closer to the end of the day, but it is not a heavily used parking lot. This is the area that would be expanded, and they do some, improvements here to be able to have that drop off and pickup for the distribution. Again, they'll have some trucks, they'll have the loading and unloading areas here, and then maintain the existing parking lot. Looking east, down Marlin Drive, like I mentioned, there's some mini storage here, there's mini storage here. So there's not gonna be a lot of impacts for having some extra traffic on this road, because it's already a low use area, and they do have that cul-de-sac turnaround. This is looking to the west on Marlin Drive. So ultimately, staff is recommending approval with the stipulations in the report, with the landscaping, the access aisle, as well as there is a stipulation tying it to the operational plan. So if they increase significantly in employment and are going to need parking, they would have to come back for a major amendment to reevaluate the parking need based on their operational plan or any other additions that they're going to potentially do at this building. So with that, I'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the commission on this one?
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
now this is just a good example of an existing development in the city wanting to expand, providing additional opportunities for their employees without having to increase the number of employee count. It's been a pleasure working with them in consideration of not requiring additional parking when we don't need it. And I think that approving this, even though the regulations do require the additional parking, with consideration of their operational plan, will allow that to be maintained. If in the future, the ownership should change, the operation should change, then they would need to come back in and provide additional parking or potentially do an amendment to this request again. But an example of how we can compromise, we do have a massive amount of pavement out there that is unnecessary. And this is an example of where we can minimize those instances.
Thanks, Vicky. Haven?
My thoughts were kind of along that line. This property has a lot of space which could be used for parking. And so for these purposes, we're only looking at the improved parking spots, the paved parking spots. And and they have other land that in the future could be improved for additional parking, I would guess. I guess my question is that if they started using that grass area for additional parking, go back to the same question I had earlier. What authority and resources does the city have in that regard?
Mr. Chair.
Vicky?
Those are the kinds of things that are really easily visible for staff when we see that happen. And we would just put them on notice that their employee count seems to have increased and that they're locked into the operational plan that they submitted, and it would become a violation on the property. And we do have the mechanisms in place to ensure compliance. I would assume if that should happen in the future, they would come back with a plan to add additional parking. They do have the real estate for it. Our consensus is, though, if they don't need it today with their operational plan, let's not require that it be constructed.
All right, anything else from the commission? Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make a motion to approve this with stipulations.
All right, Karen made the motion, Vince seconded her motion. The motion is to approve with stipulations. Is there any discussion on it? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 16.
All right, item number 16 before you, this is a conditional use permit to allow an oversized garage. This property is located off of Canyon Drive. It is 0.91 acres, currently contains a single-family dwelling with an attached garage and a detached shed. This property is zoned low-density residential 1. Future land use is low-density neighborhood. And this property takes access off of Canyon Drive. What the applicant is proposing to do here is to construct a 24-foot by 40-foot, which is 960 square feet, detached garage. This detached garage will have 2 double garage doors that measure 16 feet wide by 8 feet tall, and this is proposed to be used for personal storage and vehicle parking. So some of the criteria that we look at when we're looking at these oversized garages. This is just another aerial picture of it. This is the elevation of what the garage will look like. So we do look at whether the garage will match the existing dwelling and be constructed with the same building materials. So this is constructed to match the building material of the existing single-family dwelling, including the exterior siding color. And as you can see, it does maintain a residential character for a garage. I do want to point out that historically, the Planning Commission has required that oversized garages be recessed behind the dwelling. Going back to an aerial picture here, the way that this house is configured, as you can see, the attached garage, it's a snout nose, so it does stick out in front of the single-family dwelling. They're proposing to put the garage up here in this area. So based on location of the existing structures and location of the proposed garage, this property will be predominantly garage from the street view. However, there is a private septic system on this property. City sewer and water is not available up here on Canyon Drive. So their septic system, their tank and drain field is located behind their house. And also this property does slope starting about right behind their house to the south. It does slope downward pretty substantially. So those two factors do limit their ability to be able to construct something behind the dwelling. And there is also a 2-stall attached garage that exists on the property. As you can see in this picture, and I'll show you some pictures of the actual property as well, they are proposing to construct this in an area where there are some existing trees that could provide some screening to not only the street, but also to the adjacent properties. It is, however, in Public Works' 5-year roadway plan to do some reconstruction of Canyon Drive. Currently, Canyon Drive is within a 50-foot wide right-of-way. It is a collector street, so that right-of-way is not large enough for a collector street. So in the reconstruction of Canyon Drive, those trees along this north property line will be removed. The applicant has indicated that in the event that those trees are removed, he will provide some different landscaping. He will reinstall that landscaping to provide that buffer from the street view. However, depending on what landscaping he puts in there, it could take some time for that to develop and to mature. This does comply with the land area regulations of the low-density residential district in terms of its setback, its height, and the lot coverage of the property. With that reconstruction of Canyon Drive that what they will be doing, within the next 5 years, like I mentioned, they will need to likely require some additional right-of-way. So Public Works is asking that if this garage is approved, that it provide an additional 9-foot setback from the north property line to account for that future reconstruction and expansion of that right-of-way. So there is a stipulation in this that if this is approved, that they provide a 34-foot setback from the north property line. That would be the regular 25-foot setback plus the additional 9 feet for that expanded right-of-way. Let me show you some pictures of the property here. So this is the rear elevation. So this front elevation is what will be seen. This is designed to align with the existing driveway. So this front elevation that you see is what you will see driving up Canyon Drive going west. And this is the rear elevation, so this would be what would be seen going east. This is what that west neighbor would see for a rear elevation. Right and left elevations. So this is a picture of the property from Canyon Drive. You can see their attached garage kind of sticks out from the house. The house is shielded by these 2 real large trees on the property. This is where they are proposing to construct the detached garage. So you can see these existing mature trees right here. These are what would be removed when Canyon Drive is reconstructed. this is looking west towards the neighboring property. You can see there's some trees in here as well that appear like they probably bloom in the springtime, so they're not really a real good buffer in the wintertime, but in the springtime. This is looking east somewhat from the neighboring property, looking towards the house. So here's the house, here's the attached garage, and this is where that new detached garage would go. This is Canyon Drive looking west. As you can see, there's no sidewalks currently on Canyon Drive. And this is Canyon Drive looking east. So ultimately, staff was torn on this one. We kind of went back and forth a little bit in terms of the pros and cons of this detached garage. So some of the things that we pointed out in terms of whether or not the Planning Commission chooses to approve this, I am putting it in front of you without a staff recommendation. So if you do find that it is an appropriate location and an appropriate design for the neighborhood, then you can approve it with the stipulations that are noted in the report. However, if through your discussions you don't feel that it meets those requirements, then you can deny the request as well. There is a representative for the applicant in the audience today. The applicant himself is still in Arizona snowbirding. But he did ask that if it does come to the point where you would prefer to hear from him versus his representative, that we can discuss when he would be back. So I'll stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. Vicky?
Yeah, if we could just do a point of clarification. Cassie, could you put up the site plan, please?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, there it is.
Okay, so as you can see, the double doors of the garage will not face out to Canyon Drive. They will instead be facing east. So what you're going to see is a side elevation along the street.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go to the elevations, there you go. Even though it's saying it's the front elevation, it's actually going to face onto the property as a side elevation. Go to the next one, please. There you go. So there is the elevation.
You'll see this one from the street.
Yes, that is what you'll see from the street, which lent itself to the difficulty staff was having with this. You've got the criteria that you've set forth. There's criteria adopted by regulation for an oversized garage. It's not recessed from the home. With the landscaping going down as a part of the city project, even if additional trees would be planted in the future, it'll be years before they ever function as screening. And you're going to see the protruding existing garage as well as this side view as the dominant features on this lot. We appreciate that this is a beautiful area, that there are trees in general throughout the area, but it is going to change the character of this lot in general, looking at it with the massive amount of accessory structures in lieu of the single-family residential dominance that should be on the site. Sorry we're putting this in your hands, but this has been a tough one for us.
All right. I do have a speaker request form from Brad Booth. Is that to answer questions should they come up, or would you like to address us?
Yes.
Come on up then. Identify yourself once you're up.
So my name is Brad Booth, and I'm a friend of the landowner. We've had this discussion amongst us for years, and one of the thoughts as Marty was moving forward with this project is just to the east at the corner of Canyon and what's this, the major street down there?
Can't think of
Falls.
Yeah, yes.
Falls. There's been a very beautiful garage set up. It's it's way bigger than what Marty's proposing here. And it's owned by the Pattons, who are very nice people. And they have a beautiful structure. Marty has sold his business and has some equipment that he does not want to get rid of and wants to store it in this facility. I can only tell you, I know the people, and it will be more immaculate than most places in town. So with that being said, I will answer what questions I can, of course, not owning the land.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Brooke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for staff. So were the neighbors notified?
Yes, they would have been notified through the public notification process.
And no comments from the neighbors?
I have not heard anything.
Okay, thank you.
Alicia?
Thank you, and thanks, Vicky, for clarifying the elevations. I wasn't sure what you'd see from the street. I understand there's some issues to the south of the house in terms of developing anything based on septic. I wonder to the west and slightly south of where it's currently proposed, if it could be rearranged and oriented there just to give farther setback from the street and be a little closer to neighborhood character. Seeing the images that you provided, it does seem like there's not a lot of challenging topography in that sort of front and west area of the yard. And without those trees there with the future work, it will, like you said, take some time for new trees to mature. So wondering if there's any way it could be tucked back a little bit on the site. Thanks.
He doesn't want it to go way very far south. The bigger concern will be getting a driveway if he has to.
Well, we'll just go to Vince at this point, if that's okay, Alicia.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Alicia's question was mine. I'm curious as to the location, as to why this one is being, it's so far from the main structure of the house. So my question is the same.
And Mr. Booth, if you can take a chance at it, or Cassie.
So I just asked Mr. Booth if he knows anything about that. And I know that the applicant did indicate to me that shifting it too far south would make it so that it doesn't align with the driveway. I'll show you, go back to the aerial picture here. So it would make it so that it wouldn't align necessarily with the driveway here. So he would be looking at having to extend some pavement if he were to put it like down here. He'd be looking at having to extend some pavement down through his yard. Did I get that right, Brad?
For the most part. When you start looking at the dimensions of the garage, 40 by 24, when you bring the 40 feet from the road down, if you bring it down too far, it's gonna not work well with what is being said here. So I'm not sure how else to turn it, and we can't get the 40 feet to swing the other way.
Vince, Alicia, any follow-up to that? Here you go.
Oh, all right. Thank you. I think I see what you're saying in terms of swinging it. Sounds like it's going to be used for equipment. I don't know if there's any, if the footprint could be modified a little bit just to try to get closer to the character of the neighborhood. I don't think putting it, even with extending 9 extra feet without those trees, it just doesn't seem aligned with what the neighbors have in that region, and it doesn't seem like an undue burden to move it a bit or resize it, or if a little bit of pavement is needed to bring it closer to the other structures. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you. Vince?
And I'm concurring with that, because I mean, just looking at this aerial view of it, you could see that that would be set so far apart from the main house that it's like it's its own entity. It's not even part of the house. Not that that's the most relevant, but the question I think is unanswered as to can it be moved. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And Mr. Booth, we know you're in a pickle. We know you're not the landowner here. So,
Yes.
If you can't answer it, you can't answer it.
Well, with the dimensions that he has chosen, that is the best fit for it. And I can only tell you, I know the neighbors too. There's not one person up there that's gonna have a problem with it, because it is gonna be a beautiful place.
Can I ask, just for discussion purposes on this part of the topic, can you put the site plan up? And I'm just curious if the house is located on the, so we have 107 feet plus or minus to the corner of the house.
Oh, to the front property line, you mean, right here?
Yeah, am I reading that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Appears to be 107.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
As you know, we always try not to design or redesign a project in the middle of a meeting. And today I heard from the neighbor that this is being used to store commercial product from a business. Garages are limited to what they can be used for on a residential property, and they have to be used for residential purposes and your typical simple residential or primary residential uses. So having said that, and Cassie indicated that the owner is not returning until May 2nd, and that if it looked like there was going to be questions and concerns that may not allow this to be supported by Planning Commission, that perhaps we just make the decision to continue this until he's back in town, which would put this to your May 8th Planning Commission meeting. We won't do that to you in the future. Either they need to be here, or we'll not waste your time discussing something and then continuing it at the end of it. But since there is room for redesign and we do need clarification on what's being stored in it, I would support potentially that we continue it until the owner is back in town, which would be the May 8th meeting.
Oh, Haven, I'll let you jump in.
That was exactly what I was intending to do, is I move we continue this application to a date in the future as chosen by the applicant.
Do you think, I kind of like Haven's wording of that, just in case we don't have Mr. Jacobs' plans set on his return. Does that work for staff to reach out to him and?
You have to be date specific
Date
in this meeting.
specific, okay.
Mr. Chair, I have confirmed with him, May 2nd is when he will be back in town.
Okay, I'll put that in the motion then.
Then
Your
what's the
next
date?
meeting is May 8th, so that would be the motion.
May 8th.
Okay. All right, Haven made the motion to continue to May 8th, and Karen seconded that motion. We've got Vince.
And just want to clarify about, are there any fire suppression systems that are going to be incorporated in this garage? I was going to try to get that clarified as well. You don't have to answer that right now, but I'm getting a no from over here, so something to be concerned about.
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
Great comment, and I think once we learn more about what commercial items are being stored, that might be a topic for discussion too.
Brooke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification from staff. Is there any benefit to not approving as presented today and then starting fresh? Like, is that helpful in any way, or is it really just table it before we vote on the motion? Is it more helpful to table and then rework? Because I don't think it would be approved today just based on some of the comments, speculation. Is there more of a benefit either way?
I think in providing the best customer service for the property owner, it serves him better to continue it. Otherwise, he has to pay the application fee again and get back on a schedule.
Got it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I can ask this on May 8th too, but the reconstruction project, I heard it's on the 5-year plan. Is that like in 5 years or next year? Is that maybe Todd?
It's behind schedule. This one, I think, was already scheduled for 24, 25, so it's probably 3 years out or so. The first phase is further up the hill on Carriage Hills Drive. That construction is likely in 2026, so this one would be 27 or 28.
Okay. Something I'm going to be considering on this, the next round, is whether the stipulations on new landscaping should just be included with this, so it starts growing even before those trees might possibly be removed. But there's other considerations too besides landscaping. Motion on the floor is to continue to May 8th. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17.
Mr. Chair, the applicant has requested that this item be continued. In order to meet publication requirements, it has to be continued out to the April 24th Planning Commission meeting. That would be our recommendation as well.
All right.
Motion to move the item out to our April
4.
24th meeting.
Is there, and Brooke seconded. Discussion on the motion to continue? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 18, Planning Commission or staff
Thank you,
items.
Mr. Chair. It's with great sadness, but yet excitement that we want to share with you that this is Brooke's last Planning Commission meeting. We have already reached out to Jeff Bailey. Some of you may know him from the community. He's been very active in Rapid City. City Council at their last meeting did appoint him then to the Planning Commission, which means Eric Heikus will move up to a full voting member. Alicia, you will move up to alternate number 1, and Jeff will come on as alternate number 2. So again, trying to make sure that we've got this. I can't say enough about what it's meant to have Brooke in Rapid City, not only serving on Planning Commission. We have her join us on so many other committees as we're trying to work through land use things. And she's just a beacon of knowledge, and I think that her spirit and energy that she brings to all of those discussions just keep us excited about things and moving in the right direction. Her plans are exciting, but I wanted to see if she would maybe share with us what her next stage in life looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate your comments, and I will tell you, so I'm leaving for Corpus Christi, Texas today, but as I met their mayor and their city manager, my first request of them was I would really like to be considered for your planning and zoning commission. Like, I don't know what happens to a person when they start to be interested in these things, but man, I don't know a better way to get more connected to your community or to learn. I mean, I've had the privilege of sitting with you up here for several years now. You're brilliant. And the city's in really good hands, and I think we do good work so that council can do good work. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And Vicki, thank you just for your leadership and mentorship. The city wouldn't be the same without you, so I appreciate that very much.
On behalf of this being Brooke's last meeting, you might find that there are some treats that we brought in. Small gesture, but we didn't want it to go unnoticed.
Yeah, Brooke, thanks so much for all your time here. Your positivity in the community has been noted by pretty much everyone you interact with. Oh, go for it. Oh, no.
And Mr. Chair, for the last time ever in Rapid City, South Dakota, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Brooke made the motion, and there were quite a few seconds.
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thick stack today.